Okay, guys, it's so nice to be here. I appreciate y'all having me here. I'm Dr. Laura Lewis. Just to kind of give you a little background, I've been at Meridian Community College for 14 years in September, and actually my original job was recruiting, and then I moved into health and wellness, and it's been my passion ever since I was a little girl. So physical fitness, exercise has been something that has been extremely important to me. I think that it definitely not only helped me physically, but it helped me in terms of my spiritual wellness and my mental wellness and my emotional wellness. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, the importance of exercise, the difference between physical activity and exercise, and what you can start doing now to incorporate that into your activities. So I want to start out by explaining the difference between physical activity and exercise. And a lot of people get this confused. So physical activity is all physical movement, regardless of the level of energy expended. And you usually do use whole body movements when you do physical activity, but most of the time it is not consecutive or continuous. It is really stop and go, stop and go. If you think about what you do in terms of your daily chores around the house, yard work, all of that is physical activity because you're stopping and going. So what we want to try to do is encourage folks to do more exercise, which is this is definitely a type of leisure time physical activity, but it's more planned, it's more strenuous most of the time, it's more structured, and like I said, higher intensity usually. And that's kind of what we're going to look at today. And you see a lot more health benefits from doing exercise. All right. So I kind of wanted to show you quickly if my little pointer will work. I think it's out, guys. Oh, no, I just got to point it that way. So the key guidelines for adults, the whole point is for you guys to start standing more and sit less. So wear comfortable shoes. But the main thing is doing moderate to vigorous physical activity to gain health benefits. And right now, what we suggest is 150 minutes of physical activity or exercise, which is 2 hours or 30 minutes to 300 minutes or 5 hours a week of moderate intensity activity, or 75 minutes of more vigorous activity. Now, if you want to start to do more things that encourage weight loss, and extra health benefits, you're going to want to bump that up to around 300 minutes, okay? And that is where it gets more into the more advanced individual. So if you are just now starting out, you kind of want to just move to that 150 minutes per week, and we'll kind of talk about that here in just a second, and start out light, nothing extreme, just something to get you going. But like I said, those additional health benefits are definitely gained through more time in the gym or outside doing exercise. Okay. Okay, so the benefits of regular exercise. These are very well known, right? Everybody knows what the benefits are to regular exercise. Reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. We know that when you exercise, you increase the good cholesterol and you decrease the bad cholesterol, and that's what we're trying to shoot for, increasing the HDL and decreasing the LDL, the good and the bad. Reducing risk of cancer. Anytime you have a lower body fat percentage, you're going to also help reduce the risk of cancer. Reducing risk of diabetes. We know that exercise helps with insulin resistance and can help with reducing that type 2 diabetes. Increased bone mass. Osteoporosis is something that we deal with, and especially older women. That's why we encourage resistance training to help improve bone mass. Of course, delayed aging, we know that it helps with that, and we encourage that. Increases longevity, not just quantity of years, but quality of life is extremely important. If you look at what's happening now, you have more people living longer lives, but if you think about it, how many of those years are they living where they're having to take some type of medication to keep them out of the hospital? Uh, you could probably think of several people who are on high blood pressure medication, type 2 diabetes medication, and or has to have regular checkups, especially when it comes to CBD. So that's something to think about. Um, improve psychological well-being, and we're going to get into that, but anxiety is going to decrease, depression rate is going to decrease, mood elevation. You're going to see a dramatic shift in your outlook on life in general. And some of you probably can relate to this if you've been exercising. How many of you guys have already kind of been in a routine, and maybe you started a routine, you've been going for about 3 or 4 weeks and already feel like you're in a better place mentally? Yes, definitely. I can tell from personal experience that when I miss a few days of exercise in the gym, I'm already kind of seeing a slope in my mood and how I'm feeling, and even my sleep. And we'll talk about that. But here are some activities that you can start incorporating, and it kind of gives you a good idea as to how many calories are expended per 30 minutes. And this is going to vary from person to person, depending on a lot of different things. If you're a heavier individual, if you have more lean muscle tissue, all of that is going to be different. So this is just kind of a generic ballpark area. Running anywhere from 350 to 500 calories per 30 minutes. Cycling, spinning is another one that's going to increase the rate in which you burn calories, and also that depends on the time too. That's moderate intensity. So not going really too high, not reaching max heart rate, not reaching that higher target zone, but somewhere in between there. And then walking, 250 calories for 30 minutes. So, and I don't want to go too far in depth with this, but we know that when you walk for 20 minutes, you haven't quite yet reached that point where you start burning body fat. You need to be going for longer than 20 minutes to start really tapping into body fat, okay? Because you usually go through those glycogen stores and to use that for energy rather than, body fat. So in order to lose body fat, we need to be increasing the time in which we're doing our cardiorespiratory activities, okay? Do y'all have questions about that specifically? Okay. And I would encourage things that are fun to begin with. If you're not doing something you enjoy, more than likely you're going to quit doing it altogether, right? How many of you have ever known someone who pretty much hated exercise, and they went into the gym and they just, they felt like a failure, they didn't want to go back, and they stopped going for a month? All of us probably have, even counting ourselves, we have been in that position of where we didn't enjoy what we were doing and we quit. We're like, I'm not going back to that. I felt horrible, right? So we need to find things that we enjoy doing. I'm always pointing at this. So here are the benefits of physical activity for brain health. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because we're seeing an increase in numbers of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and this is something that we need to start teaching our kids, because it has a huge impact, right? If we can lower our body fat, we can actually help prevent Alzheimer's disease in some capacity. But as far as the benefits, we're looking at cognition, quality of life, depressed mood and depression, anxiety, sleep. But if you look at the adults, you have a reduced risk of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. Now, when you have less fat, you have less chance of those cytokines running around causing all this damage, right? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve not just increasing physical activity, but improve weight management. Okay, that goes hand in hand. Of course, we have improved quality of life across the board, reduced risk of depression, reduce or increasing that mood, reduced risk of our depressed mood, and then of course reduce short-term feelings of anxiety, state anxiety, reduce long-term feelings and signs of anxiety for people with and without anxiety disorders. So we know that anxiety is extremely related to or correlated with people who are not getting exercise. So if you're already feeling bouts of anxiety, stress throughout the day, we know that exercise does what? It increases our endorphins, and it can help reduce your anxiety level. I know people who had issues with anxiety. It was all circumstantial, and life happens, right? go to the doctor. What they do, they put you on some sort of anti-anxiety medication, maybe an antidepressant, and then maybe they start doing exercise. They start feeling a whole lot better. They wean off of their antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, and then they seem to be doing just fine with just exercising. And that is a really important thing to think about, because that goes along with quality of life, okay? And then we come down to sleep. How many of you get 8 hours of sleep a night? Seven. Okay, seven. So ladies, you should be getting 8 hours of sleep a night, 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Yeah, I don't get that as much as I used to because I have two little Yorkies that I run around with, and they keep me up at night. But anyway, the point is it does actually, not only does it help with your mood, but exercise can help you get better sleep. Exercise can help get you better sleep. And if you notice, if you're starting to become more regular with your exercise, your sleep patterns are going to be better. Have y'all ever noticed that? Increasing your exercise and you feel like you have a better night's rest going through non-REM and REM sleep?
I do, but I noticed myself way more tired. Like, I guess it's probably like my body trying to get used to it, but I noticed myself extremely tired for like a couple of weeks.
Okay, so when you're exercising.
Yes.
Okay, so my advice to you is to look at the intensity, the volume in which you're doing it, and then see if there might be a way for you to kind of decrease that and then kind of work up to that. So maybe sometimes what happens is when you're new, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying that a lot of beginners, they want to start out hardcore and they want to go at it really hard and they want to get in there and try to kick butt, right? What happens is they sometimes do wear themselves so far down that they end up taking extremely long breaks. And that's not what we want. We want to start out slow, slow, slow and progress gradually. And that way it kind of helps with that too. And also nutrition plays a big role in that. So we can talk about that sometime too. All right. So we've got the major components of health-related physical fitness, and this is something that we need to incorporate, not just cardiorespiratory, but and this isn't on a sheet. I'll get to those in a second. But cardiorespiratory endurance, we talk about that a lot. All you hear is cardio, 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 because what? It helps our hearts, right? But we also have to incorporate muscular strength and muscular endurance. Okay, muscular strength, the amount of force a muscle can generate one time. And of course, muscular endurance, the ability a muscle can generate submaximally, for a longer period of time. And I think that we lack the muscular endurance that we had when we were younger. We're just not doing things repetitively enough, especially in the gym. We're going in, we're doing a couple of things, and then we're leaving. We cannot neglect muscular strength and muscular endurance. All right, and that's a whole other topic on how to train for that and what to do. That might be something we can do later on as well. Flexibility, the ability to move joints freely through a full range of motion. So I want everybody in here to take your right hand up, take it back. Now scratch. Can you touch? Scratch your back. Can you touch your fingers? Can you touch your fingers? Okay, that's shoulder range of motion. Now do the other side. This might be a little more difficult. How many of you can touch on that side? All right, so that's one method of measuring flexibility is shoulder range of motion. And if you've noticed, reaching is extremely important in our daily life, right? And when we go do things and we're only using our dominant side, we're losing range of motion in our less dominant side. So we need to make sure that we're doing things on the right side as we are on the left side and vice versa. Body composition. This is part of the health-related components, the amount of fat and fat-free mass in the body. So we want to make sure that we are at a healthy state as far as our percent of body fat and our body composition. And exercise helps with this tremendously, if you haven't noticed that already. How many of you have already started your plans and you've already started seeing some changes in your body composition? Very good. Awesome. Yeah, for me, it's mostly diet. That's a whole another topic, but diet is also a huge part in changing body composition. Exercise alone is not going to really do that, even though it is extremely important. You know, you can have someone who is overweight and who is still healthy. I've seen triathletes who are considered overweight, but they have a very good VO2 max and they don't get out of breath when they're walking up a flight of stairs. So that's also important as well. Okay, so how do we incorporate this into our routines? What we like to do is use the FIT acronym. If you've ever taken an exercise physiology class or fitness class, you'll notice that we use frequency, intensity, time, and type, right? So how many times a week are you training? How hard are you training? How many sets are you doing? How many reps are you doing? And what is your heart rate? And then how long are you going for? What's the duration of your exercise? And this goes along with all the components we just talked about. How long are you doing cardio? How many reps and sets are you doing with your resistance training? And how long are you holding your stretches for, right? And then what mode of training are you using, right? So if you're doing cardiorespiratory activities, what type of cardio are you doing? Are you swimming? Are you walking? Are you jogging? There's a plethora of things that you could be doing for that particular health component. And be smart with your goals. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented. All of these things are extremely important when you start looking at how you're going to develop a program. Okay? And we'll get into that here in just a second. Let's see what time it is. Okay, 15 after. So developing an exercise prescription for cardiorespiratory fitness. So we're going to go through all of those components individually. And we're going to talk about the initial stage, the intermediate stage, and the advanced stage. Because you need to find out where you fall. And you need to start there. Okay, so if you're a beginner, this is where you are with cardiorespiratory. Lasts roughly 2 to 6 weeks if you're doing it consistently. And then, of course, this is going to depend on your initial fitness level. So, what you're doing and how you're doing it is extremely important, and determining where you are will determine where you are here. Okay, so start at a comfortable intensity level. And if you look with me in your packet, the heart rate reserve, target heart rate, with the help zones, you can turn to the second page, and it talks about target percent zones. And what we want to do, especially in the initial phase, is determine what zone should we be in, right? So if you're just looking at starting out, you might want to do just the general health zone, okay, 50 to 60% of your resting heart rate. And and you can still do this, you can take your max heart rate and multiply it times your target heart rate zone, but we're using heart rate reserve to be a little bit more accurate. And it does kind of show you how to calculate that in these papers that I've given you. But if you're trying to lose weight, you might want to jump into the 60 to 70%. This is weight management. If you're trying to reduce body fat, this is something that you need to do. If you're trying to increase your aerobic capacity and also help with your weight management, you can jump to 70 to 80% of that heart rate reserve. And of course, if you go any further than that, you are looking at a more advanced target zone, okay? And I would suggest if you're just starting out, you would want to be in that 50 to 60% range if you're a beginner, because what we want to do is increase gradually. The goal for these folks in this initial conditioning phase is to go for about 20 to 30 minutes of low to moderate intensity, and it kind of gives you a good idea as to where that is, 40 to 60% of heart rate reserve in the beginning, okay? And of course, you know that this can change over a period of time. And then be aware of body pains. Be aware of how your body is feeling. If you're feeling exhausted the next day, kind of go back through the day before and recall what you did and how you did it. Were you drinking enough water? Did you get enough sleep? To determine whether or not it really is the exercise that's causing you to become too depleted or fatigued the next day. okay? Because you don't want to exercise and then feel like you can't do anything the very next day. I've been there, I've done that, and it's really not even a good quality of life to not feel like you can move out of the bed for training, right? So we want to gradually get to that. And that can happen. The improvement phase of this ranges from 12 to 40 weeks. You want to definitely, you're going to see a more rapid progression here. So, and that all depends on you. You know, it all depends on how you're feeling. So increase duration and frequency first, and then start increasing the intensity, meaning heart rate. So you kind of want to keep that zone in the same place, but the duration you want to go a little bit longer, maybe increase your time a little bit, all right? And then maintenance phase, usually reached after 16 to 28 weeks. Fitness goal is achieved, and then of course you just continue to do what you're doing in this to maintain and go on from there. Now, if you're not seeing any improvement in your weight, and you've been doing this for 20 weeks, what does that tell you exactly? Well, definitely, possibly, your body composition is changing. You might have lost a little bit of body fat, but you could have definitely seen an increase in muscle, and that's why you should get your percent body fat taken prior to starting out any program. Diet. So if you see that maybe body fat hasn't shifted, body composition hasn't shifted. I know folks who train so they can eat. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that before. Okay. So I know a lot of triathletes who literally go kill themselves on the road, in the water, just so they can go and have that Big Mac. I've even witnessed people eating Big Macs on our bikes. And yeah, I mean, I've seen it all. I have seen people pull out some interesting things during the triathlon. But the point I'm trying to make is this. You have to still pay attention to the diet. That is extremely important. Exercise is really good, gives you a lot of wonderful benefits, but when it comes to the overall package, you got to incorporate nutrition. Okay. All right. Next thing, and
can I ask a question
yes,
about
ma'am.
all that about the target heart rate?
Yes,
like,
ma'am.
You probably said this, but I'm a lot.
It is. It is.
So, like, what? So do you shoot for like maintaining that target heart rate for like 20 to 30 minutes, or?
So that's a very good question. When it comes to just general wellness, so if you're looking at a mid-range target heart rate, yeah, you can try to keep that heart rate up if it's mid-range. Now, if you're going higher range, you don't really want to push your heart that hard for a long period of time.
Like 146, is that high? I mean, or is that different?
Well, that just depends on if that is someone that is your age, because that's based on someone that is 45 years old.
So my numbers would be different.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is you first have to get your max heart rate, which is 220 minus your age, and it does explain that in this. And then you'll calculate your heart rate reserve, and then you'll multiply that times the zone in which you want to use, and then add your resting heart rate back to that. And that is going to give you your zone based on your resting heart rate and your max heart rate. That is your heart rate reserve zone. And used to, we would just have our students do 220 minus age times their zone, but it's not as accurate. So what I would do is, in order to know what your intensity is, follow the instructions on this, get that zone, and then you know where your numbers are. So when you're out there on the road or you're in the doing cardio on the treadmill and you look down at your watch and you see your heart rate, where your heart rate is, periodically you want to look at that. You want to see what your heart rate is, because if you're not in your zone, you're not going to reach your goal. Does that make sense? To a
So
degree.
you're supposed to maintain that.
Yes, ma'am.
Not the maximum, but the zone.
Correct. You never really want to go to that, maximum. Yeah, there's no physiological benefits to ever exercising at your max heart rate. Now, there are, in my opinion, it does more harm than good when you're putting your heart under that much pressure. Now, I know people who are trying to increase their VO2 max, the amount of oxygen that you can take
So
in.
like an anaerobic exercise, you typically are gonna go to that at some point. If you're doing an exercise that's a lot of stopping and starting.
Yes, that's probably like a weight training program. Like if so, tennis, yeah, I mean, you're looking at a lot of that depends on how long you're moving, So you might have a heart rate that's on the high end, and then 2 minutes later it comes back down.
Yeah, it's a wide range, like my Apple Watch tracks all of it, so I can see, where it peaks. And I
Yeah.
guess my question in all of that is like, just maintaining that range, I guess, for a certain amount of time is the goal.
It really is, in my opinion, in all of my research that I've done, HIIT training, high intensity interval training is where you do things like that, where you do hard bouts of exercise and then you back off, like 30 seconds on, a minute off, 30 seconds on, a minute off. That's kind of similar to that because you might go really hard in tennis for a few minutes and then it's not so much. But it just depends on what your goals are. If you're trying to lose body fat, my research and my opinion is that you want to keep a very steady heart rate at a certain rate for a certain long period of time, 45 minutes at a time.
So that would be like more like
Walking, jogging,
steady,
yes ma'am, steady state cardio.
I did that for many, many years, and I guess it worked. I don't know.
Well, I think you look great.
I mean,
Yeah, and like I said, the cardio, the training, the physical activity, the exercise is only one component of weight management. Now, when you're out there playing tennis, you're automatically going to increase your lung capacity, your VO2 max, all of those things are going to get better. And that's exercise, and that's physical activity. But what we don't want is for people to get in this mindset of, oh, I can just walk for 5 minutes and stop, and then walk for 5 minutes and stop. I mean, that might be someone who is beginning and someone who is overweight, obese, morbidly obese. But if you've been going for a very long time, you're probably going to be in that category where you could do steady state for a longer period of time. And I'm a big proponent of fasted cardio in the morning. I'm not a big proponent of, just eating certain macronutrients. I like to incorporate all macronutrients in my diet. I don't neglect carbs. I don't neglect fats. I don't neglect anything. All right. But very good questions. I just think the point is longer periods of time. And that's where our heart's going to see the most benefits. Does that make
but I
sense?
mean, like, I'm on the tennis court for 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Yeah, that's great.
So
Yeah, you're doing phenomenal.
it's, it's that up and down with my heart rate.
Yeah, you're
I still
doing
think
more
it's
HIIT
really
training
good.
when you do that.
Yeah.
And we know that there are a ton of benefits to that too. And we wouldn't suggest anybody to do HIIT training unless they are a little bit more, fit. Does that make sense to everybody? Are we on the same page? All right, if y'all have more questions, just, ask away. Be happy to do my best to answer those questions. And like I said, you might start out in the slow progression phase. You might already be here. You might already be down here where you're starting to do some heavier weight training, fewer repetitions. That's more strength training. Increasing your sets per exercise 2 to 3. So volume is extremely important when it comes to gaining strength and endurance. The amount of reps and sets that you're doing in a week. And of course, maintenance, that starts around 20 weeks after training. Requires long-term commitment to maintain gains. And that's another thing, we do this for lifelong progress. And my suggestion is to, once you get to maintenance, do everything you can to continue with where you are. Because you can go through a process called reversibility, which is where you lose your fitness. Generally with cardiorespiratory, you lose fitness after a couple of weeks. Okay, you'll start to see those fitness levels come down. Now, weight training, resistance training, you could probably go 3 or 4 weeks out of the gym, come back, and you might even be stronger. It's interesting how that works. So, But cardio, it's hard to come back after 2 weeks of break and be where you are versus where, be where you were at that point. So good points. And this is for flexibility, frequency, 2 sessions per week. And this is all what I would suggest is a good starting place here, 2 sessions per week. If you're doing yoga, that would be good. If you're doing some things at home, moving through some exercises at home for flexibility. 5-minute duration, increasing gradually 20 minutes, holding stretches for 10 seconds to mild discomfort, moving on up to about 30 seconds for every hold, and then slow progression, 3 to 4 sessions per week. Guys, ideally, they say we should be doing flexibility exercises 5 to 7 days a week, ideally. It's a lot. I don't know very many people who do that, except for yogis. And I'm not one of those. I'm more or less wanting to hit the gym, hit the weights. I was doing a lot of cardio, but, it's hard to fit it all in. I'll be honest. It's hard to fit it all in. That's a reality. Okay, so how do I know how hard I am working? We've already kind of talked about it. So your heart rate is a good way to measure that. And if you don't already have a device, there's a lot of devices out there that can kind of, you can get a Fitbit, you can get a smartwatch. Those are some good ways to measure heart rate. I would suggest getting something that's accurate, that you can look down at and it tells you exactly where your heart rate is at that moment. There's some devices out there where you're going to see the number just go up. It's not going to be the number, okay? So get you a good tracker and keep track of what it is, especially when you move through those phases after week 4, week 6. If you've been doing the same training and your heart rate is actually lowered, you might want to look at increasing the intensity, okay? Because you don't want to slip back. You want to keep moving forward. And of course, I left you a link of how to get your target heart rate using Heart Rate Reserve. So once you get this in the portal, you can go to the link and it'll kind of help you get through the steps. It should kind of be the same thing as what I've given you. This is just a picture of what's out there right now through the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, health.gov. They really just want us to be doing 150 minutes a week of exercise, okay? And muscular strength training 2 to 3 days a week, that would be best, at least. That's on the low side, folks. And right now, especially in the state of Mississippi, we're nowhere near doing this.
So you're saying the strength training is on the low side 2 days a week?
That's your minimal. That's your minimal. Yes, ma'am. And upper body one day, lower body another day. And start out slow, progress. It just takes some practice. Now, of course, you can do the 75 minutes per week, but you're going to increase your intensity level if you only do 75 minutes per week. So that 150 is moderate intensity. And then, if you go down to 75 minutes a week, then that's going to be higher intensity. All right? We'll get this clicker soon. All right, so this is kind of what I've always said. In order to change, you need to understand what it is you are changing and why. If you don't know what it is you're changing and why you want to change, it's going to be hard to stick to something, right? How many of you have ever been in a place where you're like, I know I need to change, I know I want to change, but I just am not there yet, mentally just not there yet, okay? Because you're already tired. You just don't feel like it. We've all been there, and that's a reality. And I would suggest if you're at that point, it really needs to start coming from a place of focus on the change and not the result. So even if it's small changes throughout the day or throughout the week, then you can actually start seeing the results later on down the line. You're going to feel better. Even if it's just one change in a week. One change a week can lead to healthier behaviors. They always say once you do one healthy behavior, it actually increases the chances of you doing another healthy behavior. So if you're exercising, you're more likely going to want to eat healthier. If you're eating healthier, you're going to be more likely to exercise. And I have experienced that myself. So focus on the change, and not the result. I wanted to take a few quotes out of the Motivational Manifesto book that I read. I love that book. I'm kind of a factual reader. But Mr. Burchard said, a hallmark of those who achieve greatness is the discovery that they can control the level of motivation they feel by better directing their own minds. So truly, in the grand scheme of all of this, it's really up to the individual to change their thought process on where they are with exercise, where they are with their own physical well-being. Because I can give you facts all day long. You've got a ton of facts out there that you get bombarded with every day, whether it's through social media, the news, whatever it may be. You're going to get facts. But until you decide to change what's in your mind, nothing's going to matter, right? Nothing's going to change. So you should cultivate an internal locus of control. And this is why I said I wanted to do more of a motivational type talk at the end, because I think that we all know we need exercise. So we need to remember that we are in control of our actions. And we need to stop enabling ourselves to thinking or justifying we don't have time, or we don't have the resources, or there's a million different things that we say to ourselves every day as to why we don't start something. How many of you can relate to that? Oh yeah, everybody. I've been there. So building self-efficacy is an important tool. Knowing and believing you can accomplish a task, whether it's just hitting the gym for 30 minutes a day or just twice a week to start out. It is your ability to know you can do that that's going to get you there, right? So I know everybody can do that. You have the resources out there. I actually went to Bonita the other day, and I noticed they have outdoor physical fitness tools. And I'm like, wow, this is great. So people who cannot afford to go to a gym, they can actually go to Bonita Lakes and do some resistance training out there, not just cardio. So I think that that was a wonderful thing they added to that. So maintain momentum by practice. So practice makes perfect. Have y'all heard that before? If you don't practice, you're not going to do it. And you're going to forget how to do things. And you're going to forget, well, why do I need to do, chest exercises with shoulders? Or why do I need to do quadriceps with hamstrings? Or why do I need to do 3 days of cardiorespiratory activity? You got to practice. Okay, another quote. A great maturity opens in the human psyche when we accept that we can control our impulses by conditioning our thoughts, and that we alone are responsible for our emotions and reactions in life. So no matter what you are going through in your life, you still can incorporate things that's going to better yourself. No matter what's happening, you still have the capability through your mind power. And that's part of exercise is not easy. Diet is not easy. But you can change the way you think about things. It is up to you ultimately. So control positive and negative self-talk. I know a lot of, especially women, do not want to go to a gym because they feel intimidated. When I went to the gym for the very first time and I saw a bunch of men in the weight room, I was like, I don't want to go over there next to those guys. Sorry, guys, if you're listening. I don't want to go because it's somewhat intimidating when you first start out, right? So a lot of times I see most women staying on the cardio machines when they should be doing resistance training. Why? Because that's going to help you long term. I know women, especially through menopause, you go through what we call osteoporosis, bone loss. So increasing your resistance training is going to benefit you. So don't let that keep you from going. Increase your positive self-talk, and therefore move you towards that. Don't care what anybody else thinks. Just get in there and do it, right? Have compassion for yourself. I know it's like kind of funny to think about. But yeah, you need to have compassion for yourself. And you don't need to feel like if you don't do something right the first time, don't give yourself a hard time about it. Say, oh, well, it's a learning experience. I'm going to get there one of these days. I can promise you this. When Arnold Schwarzenegger started out, he didn't know what the heck he was doing. He was watching all these other guys doing what they're doing, and he started doing what they were doing, and look what happened to him. Encourage yourself daily. So it is okay to fail. It is okay to skip sessions. It's okay to backslide a little bit because you will. Just do not be so hard on yourself. That's the takeaway from that. I think this is the last quote. Let us remember that when we take action, an invisible force gathers around us, pulling opportunities that align with our purpose, propelling us with momentum to our freedom. And what that means to me is when you start doing things, when you start acting things out or executing this, when you start going to the gym and exercising, getting those things going, other positive things are going to start coming your way. Okay? Other good things, other good results are going to start coming your way. So, it is up to us. It is up to us to design our lives and how we want to live our lives. And that includes taking care of number one. I hear you, how many of you have children? Okay. So, how many times have you ever said, I don't have time because of the kids? All right. I don't have time because I have other obligations for my family. I don't have time because I've got these other things I got to do, maybe work. So, this should be just as important as all of those other things. Because if you don't have your health, and if you're not exercising and getting in your physical activity, if you're not healthy, how can you benefit other people? How can you be there for other people, right? If you're not mentally healthy, if you're not physically healthy, it's going to be harder for you to be there, be present, and be mindful of what others are doing. So that's something to think about. And we decide when we want to start, and we decide when we want to stop, right? Okay, and then also you want to make sure that you recruit good role models. Recruiting good role models, whether it's a personal trainer, a dietitian, exercise science person, or maybe even someone that you know. Back in the day, my person was Jane Fonda. I love Jane Fonda. I'll watch her all day long. Love her. She was a big fitness person too, you know. So find someone that will encourage you and let that person be your guide as long as they're doing the right thing. Right? All right, so stages of change, pre-contemplation. There's nowhere in your mind where you think you're going to change something. You're already in that position of, oh, I'm not changing anything. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to exercise. I'm not going to train. I don't need to change anything. I look good. I don't need to do anything. So that is where most people are for a very, very long time. Then contemplation comes in, awareness of need and intent to change. So they are starting to become aware that there are some issues with their physical health. Maybe they went to the doctor. Maybe they couldn't put their pants on. Maybe they had to go out and buy new clothes. So these are all just examples of becoming more aware. Okay, and then thinking, okay, maybe I do need to change some things, right? And then preparation. This is where you plan to take action within a month. You're getting things together, you're getting things in order, whether it's joining a gym, having a gym membership, getting the right type of shoes, getting the right type of exercise clothing, making sure that you have your fitness tracker ready. Being prepared is half the battle. Okay? Action. Person is actively working toward that change. Okay? Relapse is definitely common here. So if you see a time where you're not exercising anymore and you know you need to get back at it, this is generally common. The main thing is to get back on board. Right? Maintenance. So if you've been doing this consistently for about 6 months, generally you're going to continue on this path. Okay? And then termination. So everything is now part of your life. Exercise is just part of your life. How many of you can say you're there? Okay. So we have more people who are not there than that are there. So there are 6 common barriers. Lack of knowledge. We've mentioned that before. Lack of motivation, no drive. What gets you going? Incorporate some things like music. That'll kind of help keep you going. Some people are just in denial. You ever know anybody that's just in denial of needing to change some things. Yeah. Perceived invulnerability, this is a big one. Believing that you are not susceptible to disease, believe that you're Superman. Most men fall in this category. Sorry, guys. But most men think that they're not going to get sick anytime soon, so they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. They're not exercising, and they're eating unhealthy all the time. Y'all are shaking your hands, yes. You need to invite some husbands and such. All right, so low self-efficacy, we mentioned that, and then lack of social support. This is a really big one. So if you don't have friends and family that are on board with what you're trying to accomplish, it's difficult. It's very difficult. I used to be made fun of all the time. People used to make fun of my weight, saying, "Oh, you're getting too skinny. Oh, you're not eating enough." Have y'all ever had that experience before? And I'm like, you don't have a clue as to you don't know what I eat. I eat a lot during the day, but I'm doing probably 100 miles a week, right? So lack of social support. You need to recruit friends that are on board, and don't worry about the naysayers, okay? You need to be the light. You need to be the role model for your friends and your family to start exercising. Because let me tell you right now, there's more people not exercising, and we have more people with type 2 diabetes, and we're going to have even more people with type 2 diabetes if we don't start. This is going to be a super duper failure on disease prevention if we don't get started. You guys can kind of go through this on your own. Some obstacles and possible solutions to obstacles. I know there's a lot of information here. I wanted to provide y'all with that, so whenever you guys get this up on your portal, you can go back through some of this. But some of this is going to be lack of motivation and willpower. That's where a lot of us are going to fall. Not having the willpower to do anything. Life happens, situations. So go through this on your own. Determine where you are, what your main obstacles are, and then try to find a solution for those obstacles, okay? All right, so steps to behavior change, increase your awareness, we mentioned that. Contemplate change, so identify that target behavior, make sure that you know a lot about that target behavior, and assess your motivation and readiness to change. So if you're not ready to do something, if you're not ready to exercise, you're just not going to do it. So you got to be ready to do it. And of course, step 3, prepare for change. Setting realistic goals is very important when it comes to exercise. If you go out there and say, well, I'm going to go run a 5K next weekend, I'm ready. I'm so ready, I'm just going to go run a 5K. You go run that 5K, and then you can't walk for 3 weeks. I've known people who have done that. So the point is, set realistic goals for your exercise. And I can promise you, if you do that, you're going to be less likely to fail. You're going to be less likely to stop. Okay? You're going to be more likely to keep moving. It might be slow, but who won the race? Did the turtle or the hare win the race? Right? The turtle. Isn't that how the story went? Okay. All right. So do that. Anticipate barriers to change. Over ambitious goals. I have students come to me all the time. It's January. I need to lose 50 pounds by spring break. Is that a realistic goal? No. Okay, someone comes to you and says, I've never ran a day in my life and I want to do a marathon in a month. Is that a realistic goal? No. Self-defeating beliefs and attitudes. That has to change when it comes to exercise. It's not fun in the beginning, but it will become better. It will get better and it will be more fun once you start seeing how much better you feel. All right, so be specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, time-oriented. Also, you want to make sure that you enlist and change agents into your life, family members, friends, professionals, and then also sign a contract. And guys, take action. Visualize your new behavior. Watch yourself go through the motion. Watch yourself going to the gym in your minds before the day even gets started. You're laying in bed in the morning time, and you're like, what does my day consist of? Go ahead and start thinking about what your exercise routine is going to look like. Have y'all ever done that before? Used visualization? Okay. And then learn to counter by substituting a desired behavior for an undesired behavior. Control the situation and self-talk again. Reward yourself and make sure you journal. I actually brought mine. This is one that I designed. If you journal, you can kind of keep track of what you're doing. And sometimes writing it down it seems to be a little bit better than to keep track in a phone because you're actually going through the process of writing it down. And I've noticed that a lot in my experience. Okay. Exercise is definitely therapy. If you haven't started exercising, now is the time. Don't wait. I tell my students, 20-year-old students, that when you get into your 30s, when you get into your 40s, you're at that point then where life is really, truly getting in the way. So you need to start cultivating these new, good, healthy habits early because we can always find a reason not to. Now, do y'all have any questions about this? If you want to ask questions about exercise, feel free because there's a lot of information out there.
I'll ask a question. So with COVID, I put on, I said, I don't know how exactly how much, I think it was around 20 pounds. And so in April, I started like intense, it was intense. I was telling you that I was exhausted to the point where, I started having some health issues, like my knees were hurting, and just other issues. But it wasn't until, and I saw a little bit of change, and then it seemed like I hit like a standstill. And then, so like, why do you think that was? I did it for
When
like
did
3
you have
months.
COVID?
Huh?
You said you had COVID?
No, this was like,
Oh.
I blame COVID for my weight gain.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't
because
do
you were
anything.
lockdowns and
No,
all this
yes,
mess.
with the lockdowns, yes. I put like,
So, I think as far as like your question in terms of why did you gain weight, why did you get
why did it seem like
plateau?
Yeah, I had a stance.
Yeah. Usually you do plateau. That just means you need to change it up. And you need to change up. Most of it's going to come from diet. I don't know if it's that you're looking at your how you're feeling in terms of your cardio health or weight. So that's two separate things, right?
I was doing different things every day. I had a different class every day.
So if you feel like your exercise is where it should be, but you feel like there was a standstill in your weight, it could be a diet thing. It could be calories in versus calories out. How many calories are you expending versus how many calories you're consuming. So if you're consuming more calories than you're expending, then you're going to gain weight. There's about 3,500 calories in every pound of fat. So if you're burning 2,500 calories a day, but you're consuming 3,000 calories a day, that's a 500 calorie, increase. And it's kind of like rollover minutes. Calories do not disappear unless you expend them. So theoretically, you could gain a pound in a week if you have that type of situation. And everybody's diet is different. You could go have a really good diet during the week, and then on the weekend, boom, you blow it out of the water. That's generally what I see with people who are starting out with a good diet plan. They'll go really good Monday through Friday, and then they blow it. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday, and then they want to get right back on top of it on Monday. But then they notice on Monday, they either saw an increase in weight or a standstill. They didn't see any deficit whatsoever. So a lot of that does come from your nutrition. Does that make sense? So training, and if you are seeing some kind of maybe some injuries, you might want to just kind of back off and start a little bit lower on maybe the amount of weight you're pushing, the number of reps, and how many times a week you're going to start out with, and get back on that really good, consistent nutrition plan. Did that help at all?
Yes, it did. But
Okay.
and I meant to add this part. I started a part-time job where I'm on my feet a lot. I'm like probably like 8 hours sometimes. And that's when I seem to notice more weight loss. So is that trying to tell me that I needed to do more cardio, or, because you were saying like past 20 minutes is whenever you start going into actually burning that body fat.
Correct.
So is that my body trying to tell me that's what I need to start doing?
Yeah, you're just expending more calories. When you're on your feet, instead of sitting down all day, you're burning more calories. So yeah, absolutely. So I would suggest to get up more. Don't be sitting a whole lot, and that's why I've encouraged our employees to get those desks that go up and down. Stand more, go to the bathroom more frequently, go outside for a minute. I don't know how y'all can do things here at work, but we kind of have a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, stand up more, do some standing, walking in place. I know that sounds silly, but it will expend a little bit more calories. But yes, doing more cardio is going to help with that weight reduction. So cardio needs to go up, like I said, 300 minutes a week.
Like whenever I do I could really get that weight off, or I'm gonna just blow up. So
yeah, 300 minutes a week is. So for weight loss, 300 plus minutes a week is what we're looking at for weight loss. Now, if you have a really good diet plan, it might not have to be that extreme. But like I said, it kind of goes hand in hand, That's what I would suggest. All right, anybody else? Well, I hope I answered all of your questions. Okay, great. Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.